Foxconn aims to double jobs and investment in India over next 12 months. Biden aide held talks with Chinese FM Wang Yi. Flood of Russian wheat halves world prices from wartime high. U.S. officials say China is now investigating its defense minister. A $188 billion exodus shows China's heft fading in world markets. Erdogan says Turkey could part ways with the EU if necessary. 10 countries and territories saw severe flooding in just 12 days. General Armageddon in Algeria apparently returns to work.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Monday, September 18th, and here are your top stories. Taiwan-based Foxconn, the world's largest contract manufacturer of electronics, aims to double its workforce and investment in India by next year. Foxconn's representative in India, V. Lee, said last Sunday in a LinkedIn post the company was aiming for another doubling of employment, FDI, in business size in India by this time next year. The company's chairman Lee Young-wei said in an earnings briefing last month that he sees a lot of potential in India.
Liu Young-wei added, several $billion in investment in India is only a beginning. The Apple supplier has rapidly expanded its presence in India by investing in manufacturing facilities in the south of the country as the company seeks to move away from China. Foxconn already has an iPhone factory in the state of Tamil Nadu, which employs 40,000 people. In August, the state of Karnataka said Foxconn will invest $600 million for 2 projects in the state to make casing components for iPhones and chip-making equipment.
Washington and Beijing said on Sunday that White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Malta for hours last weekend. According to separate statements from the White House and the Chinese Foreign Ministry published on Sunday, both sides held candid, substantive, and constructive talks during multiple meetings held September 16th to 17th. A senior Biden administration official told reporters the Malta talks spanned about 12 hours over the 2 days.
The U.S. official said that the United States told China it was ready to work together on counter-narcotics, artificial intelligence and climate change, even as it expressed concerns over unspecified Chinese support for Russia and Beijing recently sending fighter jets across the sensitive median line of the Taiwan Strait. China's foreign ministry said both sides agreed to maintain high-level exchanges and hold bilateral consultations on Asia-Pacific affairs, maritime affairs and foreign policy.
Russia's second consecutive bumper wheat harvest is reinforcing its position as the #1 exporter, but it's also easing price pressures stemming from Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Despite the Kremlin's efforts to exploit the situation by shoring up wheat prices to replenish its own coffers, the Chicago market is trading at less than half the peak reached after Moscow first invaded. As a result, Bloomberg said Russia is trying to use its dominant position to put a floor under the market.
According to people familiar with the matter, Russian officials have been trying to enforce an informal price floor for exports. Sources said that's forcing some traders to renegotiate or even cancel deals. In addition, the government can enforce the price floor by refusing to grant export documents to lower-cost shipments. Moscow also continues to woo buyers in Africa and the Middle East, while assaulting Ukraine's farm export infrastructure and mixing grain from occupied regions with its own output.
The Wall Street Journal reported that U.S. officials said China's Defense Minister Li Shangfu was under investigation by authorities and had likely been removed from his position after he was taken away for questioning by authorities last week. Sources in direct contact with the Chinese military said the defense minister was suspected of corruption in procuring military equipment. A further 8 officials from the government's military procurement unit, which General Li led from 2017 to 2022, are under investigation.
A U.S. official said, "We know that corruption in the PLA runs deep enough for this to be a factor. And we know it's had a profound effect on what they're able to do, and how they do it." General Li, 65, has not been seen in public for almost 3 weeks, and he cancelled a scheduled meeting he was due to attend in Vietnam last week. Rahm Emanuel, the U.S. ambassador to Japan, wondered if Li had been placed under house arrest in a post on X.
According to Bloomberg calculations based on the latest data from China's central bank, foreign holdings of the nation's equities and debt have fallen by about 1.37 trillion yen, or 17% from a December 2021 peak through the end of June this year. That's before onshore shares witnessed a record $12 billion outflow in August alone. Foreign fund participation in the Hong Kong stock market has also dropped by more than a third since the end of 2020.
According to Bloomberg, the MSCI China Index, which sees a down about 7% in 2023, is staring at a third straight year of losses that will mark the longest losing streak in over 2 decades. The broader MSCI Emerging Markets Index is up 3% as investors chase returns in other places like India and parts of Latin America. In addition to the economic decoupling, another reason has been the artificial intelligence boom, which has boosted markets from the US to Taiwan while giving less of a lift to mainland shares.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said last Saturday that Ankara could part ways with the European Union if necessary when asked about the contents of a European Parliament report on Turkey. The report, adopted earlier last week, said Turkey's accession process with the 27-member bloc cannot resume under current circumstances and called for the EU to explore a parallel and realistic framework for its ties with Ankara. Erdogan told reporters ahead of a trip to the United States that the EU is trying to break away from Turkey.
Erdogan said, "We will make our evaluations against these developments, and if necessary, we can part ways with the EU." Turkey has been an official candidate to join the EU for 24 years, but accession talks have stalled in recent years over the bloc's concerns about human rights violations and irrespective of the rule of law. Turkey's foreign ministry said the European Parliament report contained unfounded allegations and prejudices and took a shallow and non-visionary approach to the country's ties with the EU.
September started with a typhoon that ripped through Hong Kong, uprooting trees and flooding the city. It was the first of a slew of extreme weather events that have hit 10 countries and territories in just 12 days. The most catastrophic being the floods in Libya, which have killed more than 11,000 people and left many thousands missing. Scientists warn that these types of extreme weather events affecting countries all over the world may become increasingly common as the climate crisis accelerates.
This month, swaths of the Mediterranean have been lashed by Storm Daniel. The storm affected Greece first, releasing more rain than is normally seen in an entire year. Neighboring Turkey felt the impact too. Residents in wooded areas had to wade through knee-high water, while parts of Istanbul saw deadly flash floods. Severe flooding also struck Bulgaria, north of Greece. Brazil recorded more than 30 deaths last week after heavy rains and floods in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which was the worst natural disaster to hit the state in 40 years.
Kommersant newspaper reported last Friday, citing a source close to the general, that Russian General Sergei Surovikin is in Algeria as part of a defense ministry delegation in an apparent return to official duties after coming under suspicion in connection with a June mutiny by the Wagner mercenary force. The newspaper published photographs of Surovikin wearing a khaki suit without military insignia that it said had been taken in Algeria, a major buyer of Russian weapons.
Surovikin, dubbed General Armageddon, for his use of carpet bombing tactics during Russia's intervention in Syria's civil war, briefly headed Russia's campaign in Ukraine last year before being demoted in January. He became popular among hardline critics of the Russian military establishment, including Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin, who was killed in a plane crash last month. The general, who was praised publicly by Prigozhin, disappeared from public view after the mutiny.
The answer for last Friday was A, torrential. They duly arrived at 9:30 in spite of the torrential rain. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of Foxconn aiming to double jobs and investment in India. Number 1. Manufacturer. 生产者,制造者,生产商. Always follow the manufacturer's instructions. Number 2. Workforce. 国家或行业等的劳动力,或是全体员工. A quarter of the local workforce is unemployed. The factory has a 1,000-strong workforce. Number 3. Earnings. 薪水,工资,收入. My earnings are just above the tax threshold. Next, we have a multiple-choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comments section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.